I represented myself in court the day my husband tried to erase me from his life. He sat across the room with a $5,000 suit, a smug smile, and an attorney who charged more per hour than my supposed monthly salary. When the clerk announced that I would be appearing without counsel, he actually laughed. Not quietly, not politely. He leaned back in his chair and laughed like the whole thing was entertainment. His lawyer joined him. The sound echoed through the courtroom, low and ugly, like they already knew how the story ended. "You don't even have a paralegal," my husband said under his breath, just loud enough for the people behind him to hear. "This is going to be quick." A few people in the gallery chuckled. The judge hadn't come in yet. The room smelled faintly of old paper and floor polish. And the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like something was about to go wrong. They thought I was about to lose everything. They thought I didn't understand what was happening. They thought I was the kind of woman who signs whatever gets put in front of her just to make the humiliation stop. They were wrong. And the moment the judge sat down, adjusted his glasses, and looked directly at my husband with that slow, careful expression, I knew the next few months were going to destroy him in ways he couldn't even imagine. But to understand why that courtroom went silent that day, you have to go back to the night he decided I was disposable. It was late October, cold rain, the kind that sticks to your skin no matter how fast you walk. I remember because my coat was soaked through by the time I reached the lobby. Again, the doorman gave me that sympathetic look people give when they think your life is smaller than theirs. I didn't mind. For 5 years, I'd gotten used to people underestimating me. I stepped into the elevator with a paper bag in my hand, trying not to let the bottle inside knock against the side. It was a gift. A good one. The kind of thing he liked to show off to his friends. It was our anniversary. 5 years married, 7 years together. I actually thought we were going to celebrate. I remember watching the numbers climb on the elevator display, feeling tired but calm, like maybe things were finally settling down, like maybe the long hours, the distance, the strange way he'd been acting the past few months, maybe all of it was just stress. People believe what they want to believe when they've invested too much to walk away. The doors opened on the top floor, and the hallway was quiet. Too quiet. No music, no voices, no smell of food. Just that faint chemical scent you get when something's been cleaned too hard. I unlocked the door and pushed it open with my shoulder. And the first thing I saw wasn't candles. It wasn't dinner. It wasn't even him. It was 6 black trash bags sitting in the middle of the living room. Huge ones, the industrial kind, tied at the top, piled right on top of the rug I'd spent 3 weeks picking out. One of them had split open. My sweaters were inside, my shoes, the winter coat my mother had bought me the year before she died, folded wrong, stuffed in like it didn't matter. For a second, I just stood there in the doorway with rain dripping off my hair onto the hardwood floor, trying to make my brain understand what I was looking at. So then I heard the glass clink. He was sitting on the couch, perfect posture, one ankle resting on the opposite knee, crystal tumbler in his hand like he was in a magazine ad for expensive whiskey. He didn't even stand up. "You're home early," he said. Not hello, not happy anniversary, not anything that sounded like a husband talking to his wife, just that flat, bored voice he used when someone wasted his time. I closed the door behind me slowly, the click sounding louder than it should have. "What is this?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine, too quiet, too steady. He took a sip before answering. "Your things," he said. "Packed them this afternoon." I looked at the bags again, then back at him. "Why are my things in garbage bags?" He set the glass down on the table, right next to a thick stack of papers held together with a metal clip. "That," he said, tapping the stack, "is why." I walked closer, my shoes leaving wet marks across the floor. The papers were legal documents. I knew that the second I saw the formatting. Heavy stock, formal language, signature tabs sticking out on the side, divorce papers. He didn't even try to soften it. "I already signed," he said. "You just need to add your name. My attorney handled everything. It's straightforward." I stared at the top page without touching it. "You're divorcing me." "Yes, just that. Yes, no hesitation, no apology, no explanation that sounded like it came from a human being. I felt the paper bag slip a little in my hand and tightened my grip before the bottle inside could fall. "Today?" I said. "You're doing this today?" He leaned back, and stretching his arm across the back of the couch like he owned the room. "There's never a good day for bad news," he said. Let's not make it dramatic. Dramatic. 5 years of marriage. And he was worried about drama. I finally set the bag down on the table next to the papers. You pack my clothes in garbage bags, I said. You should be grateful I packed them at all. He stood up then, slow, deliberate, like he was about to give a presentation. He walked around the coffee table and stopped a few feet in front of me, looking me up and down with that expression I had seen him use on people he thought were beneath him. Look at yourself, he said. You don't belong in this life anymore. I didn't answer. He kept going. I'm at a different level now. The firm just promoted me. I'm dealing with people who own companies. Yet not people who type numbers into spreadsheets for 40,000 a year. There it was. The number. He loved that number. He loved reminding people how much they made compared to him. My colleagues have wives who actually understand the world we live in, he said. Ambitious women, educated women, women who don't spend their lives hiding in sweatpants in a spare bedroom, pretending to work. I let him talk. He always talked more when he thought he was winning. You're comfortable being average, he said. You always have been, and I'm done carrying you. The words hung there between us. Average, carrying, done. 5 years of pretending not to notice the things he didn't want me to notice. 5 years of letting him believe he was the smartest person in the room. 5 years of listening to him explain finance to me like I'd never seen a balance sheet in my life, and now he thought he could throw me out like furniture he didn't want anymore. He picked up the papers and held them out. Sign them tonight, he said. Take your bags, leave your key on the counter. I didn't move. I need you out before morning, he added. I don't want this dragging on. I looked at the stack in his hand, then I looked at the bags, then I looked at him, and that's when I heard footsteps. Soft ones, coming from the upstairs hallway. He didn't turn around, he just smiled. And that was the moment I understood this wasn't just a divorce. This was a replacement. She came down the stairs slowly, like she had every right to be there, barefoot, wearing my robe, not one that looked like mine. Mine, ivory silk, custom, as I had ordered it on a trip he thought was a boring training seminar. She walked straight across the living room and stopped next to him, slipping her arm through his like she'd done it 100 times. Younger than me, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect posture. The kind of woman who knows exactly how much she costs. He put his arm around her waist without even looking at me. This is Alina, he said. She's an attorney. We've been seeing each other for a while. For a while. 8 months, I would learn later. 8 months of coming home to me like nothing was wrong. She gave me a small, polite smile, the kind people use when they're pretending to feel sorry for you. I know this is difficult, she said, but you have to be realistic. You and him. You're not in the same world anymore. I didn't react. Inside. Yet my mind had already gone cold. Not angry, not broken. Cold. She glanced at the trash bags, then back at me. You should sign the papers, she said gently. Dragging this out will only make things worse for you. Legal fights are expensive, very expensive. She tilted her head slightly. You don't really have the resources for that. He laughed. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen toward me. Our joint account. Balance 0. I moved the money this morning, he said. Closed the cards too. You're not on them anymore. I looked at the screen, then at him. You emptied the account. I protected my assets, he said calmly. I'm not letting you drain what I built. I let the silence sit there, let him feel powerful, let him think he had control. Just because the truth was, I already knew exactly what he'd just done, and exactly how badly he'd just hurt himself. But he didn't know that yet, and I wasn't about to tell him. Not that night, not when he was still smiling, not when he still believed I was the weakest person in the room. I nodded once, picked up the papers, grabbed the one suitcase I actually cared about from behind the pile of bags, and walked toward the door without saying another word. Behind me, I heard the sound of him pouring another drink, and her laughing. They thought that was the end of the story. It wasn't even the beginning. Because the second the elevator doors closed, my posture changed. My shoulders came up, my breathing slowed, and I reached into the hidden compartment in my bag and pulled out the phone he didn't know existed. I unlocked it. It dialed one number. It rang twice. Yeah, the voice answered. I need a full financial trace, I said quietly. Start with his offshore accounts. Go back 5 years. There was a pause, then, You finally ready? I looked at my reflection in the elevator doors, completely calm, completely awake. Yeah, I said. He just gave me a reason. And that was the moment my husband stopped being my husband and became my case. The first thing you learn when you work in financial investigations is that people don't get caught because they're unlucky. They get caught because they get arrogant, and my husband had been arrogant for a long time. He just never realized the one person in his life who could actually understand what he was doing was the same person he thought he could throw away without consequences. The night he kicked me out, I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't call a friend. I didn't sit in my car crying like he probably imagined. I drove straight downtown, parked in the underground garage of a building he had never been inside, and took the elevator up to the 41st floor. The security guard at the desk didn't ask for my name. He just nodded and unlocked the gate. "Evening, ma'am." "Evening." The doors opened onto a quiet, dimly lit hallway lined with glass offices and locked conference rooms. Most of the floor was dark. Only one section was still lit, the operations wing. That's where my real life was. Not the spare bedroom with a cheap desk and a fake company logo on my laptop. Not the story about data entry and flexible hours. This, Apex Financial Review. The name on the lease was different, of course, as everything about the place was layered behind holding companies and government contracts. But the work that happened there was very real. White-collar crime, offshore fraud, asset tracing, court-appointed audits, the kind of cases people with money think they can bury. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. 3 analysts looked up at the same time, then immediately stood. Not because they were afraid of me, because they knew what it meant when I showed up after midnight. Something big had just started. Cameron came out of the back office, sleeves rolled up, tie hanging loose, reading glasses halfway down his nose. He stopped when he saw me. "You look like hell," he said. "Long night." He glanced at the suitcase in my hand, then at my clothes, still damp from the rain. "Personal?" "Very." He nodded once, didn't ask anything else. That's why I trusted him. "You got the files I asked for?" I said. He held up a tablet, already pulling everything we can find on him. Corporate records, property filings, tax disclosures. But if he's moving money offshore, we're going to need a hook. "I have one." That got his attention. He raised an eyebrow. "You always do." I set the suitcase down on the table, unzipped it, and pulled out the encrypted drive from the hidden compartment. "Start with his firm," I said, then cross-reference personal transfers. He's been moving money through private accounts, not corporate ones. Cameron frowned. "You sure?" "I'm positive." He studied my face for a second. "And this is your husband, right?" "Yes." "And you want a full trace?" "Yes." He didn't hesitate, didn't give me a speech about ethics, didn't tell me to think about it. He just nodded. "It's all right," he said. "Then we do it clean." He turned toward the analyst. "Full audit protocol, 5-year sweep. I want every account, every transfer, every shell company he's touched. Start domestic, then go international." One of the analysts looked up. "Federal authorization?" Cameron glanced at me. I held his gaze for a second, then nodded once. "Use the court contract," I said. "We're covered." That was the moment it stopped being a personal problem and started becoming a case. The screens lit up one by one, lines of data rolling across them like rain. Account numbers, routing codes, property records, investment structures, the digital trail people like my husband always believed they could hide. I sat down in the chair at the end of the table and watched the first report load. Name Daniel Mercer, Managing Director. This private equity division. Declare income? High. Declared assets? High. Declared taxes? Clean. Too clean. Cameron leaned over my shoulder. "He's careful," he said. "He thinks he is." I scrolled down. "That's the problem with guys like him," I said. "They think smart means untouchable." He smirked. "And it doesn't?" "No," I said quietly. "It means there's more to find." We worked until almost 3 in the morning before the first real crack showed up. Not in his accounts, in the gaps between them, transfers that didn't match income, withdrawals that didn't line up with declared investments. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones, then a wire that went through 3 different banks before disappearing completely. Cameron leaned closer to the screen. "There," he said. "I saw it too. Came in routing code." He looked at me slowly. "Mac, you weren't guessing." "No." "You think he's laundering?" "I think he's hiding money." He whistled under his breath. "That's worse in divorce court than it is in federal court." "I know." He studied me for another second. "You want me to flag this for the committee?" "Not yet." That was the key. If we moved too early, he'd lock everything down. If we waited, he'd keep digging his own hole. Not yet, I said. Build the map first. Cameron nodded. All right. He turned back to the screens. You know, he said after a moment, most people would cry after a night like you just had. I did that once, I said, when I was younger. He didn't ask when, didn't ask why. He just kept working. By the time the sun started coming up, we had the outline of something ugly. Offshore accounts, hidden transfers, money routed through legal firms, as in one name that showed up more than once. Alina Kessler, his new girlfriend, his attorney, the one wearing my robe. Cameron tapped the screen. She's listed as legal counsel on 2 of the Shell filings. I felt something shift in my chest, not anger, not jealousy, something colder. Of course she is, I said. He looked at me. You know what this means, right? Yes. It means this divorce just got very expensive for him. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. No, I said. It means he just made the worst mistake of his life. Because the moment he moved money to hide it from me, he made it visible to the only people who could actually take it from him. And he had no idea. Not yet. 4 days later, he called my fake office, not my real one, the cover job, the one he thought paid me $40,000 a year. If the call came in through the reception line, got transferred to HR, then patched into the monitoring system upstairs. Lauren walked into my office holding the tablet. He's on the line, she said. I didn't look up from the screen. Put him through, I said. She pressed the button. Her voice changed instantly, soft and professional. Oak Ridge Data Services, Human Resources, this is Lauren speaking. His voice came through the speaker, smooth, confident, the voice he used when he wanted something. Good morning, he said. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm calling about one of your employees, Cassidy Mercer. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. Here we go. Yes, Mr. Mercer, Lauren said politely. Is there an issue? A pause. Then the performance started. I'm afraid there is, he said. We're currently going through a divorce. And when I felt obligated to inform you of some concerning behavior. I closed my eyes for a second, of course. He wasn't satisfied with throwing me out. He wanted to make sure I had nothing. She's been unstable lately, he continued, financially irresponsible. There's been gambling, missing money. I'm worried she might put your company at risk if she still has access to client data. Lauren looked at me through the glass. I nodded once. Let him talk. He kept going. You should probably review her employment immediately. I'd hate for your firm to be exposed to liability because of her personal problems. Liability? He was accusing me of fraud, while we were literally mapping his. Lauren made a small, concerned sound. Oh, that's very serious, Mr. Mercer. Yes, he said. I thought you should know before this becomes public. I reached over and hit the mute button on my side. Fire me, I said quietly. Lauren blinked. You sure? Yes, she nodded, turned the mic back on, and sighed. Thank you for informing us, Mr. Mercer. We'll handle it. He sounded satisfied, relieved, like he'd just finished something important. Good, he said. I appreciate your professionalism. The call ended. Lauren looked at me. You just lost your job, she said. I stood up slowly. No, I said. I just made him feel safe. I picked up the tablet, zoomed in on the transaction list, and pointed to the Cayman transfer. He thinks I have nothing now, I said. He thinks I can't afford a lawyer. Cameron leaned against the desk. And that's exactly what you want. Yes, I looked at the screen, at the accounts. As at the numbers, he thought nobody could see. Let him relax, I said. Let him move more money. Lauren crossed her arms. And when he does? I smiled, cold, slow. When he does, we take everything. I didn't know yet that the next time I would see him, they would be in front of a judge, and he would still be laughing, right up until the moment he realized who I really was. The worst mistakes people make in a divorce don't come from anger. They come from confidence. Daniel was confident he had already won. He thought cutting me off from the joint accounts, calling my fake employer, and filing first had put him in control. He thought I was scrambling to survive while he was building a case. He had no idea I was building a file on him that could end his career, his reputation, and possibly his freedom. And the more secure he felt, the sloppier he got. That was exactly what I needed. For the next 3 weeks, I stayed invisible. No calls to him, no messages, no attempt to negotiate, no lawyer, nothing that looked like a fight. I moved into a small furnished apartment downtown under one of the shell leases the firm kept for out-of-town auditors. It wasn't luxury, but it was quiet, clean, and completely off his radar. He thought I was staying with friends. Let him think that. Every morning I went to the office before sunrise, and every night I left after dark. Cameron's team built the financial map piece by piece, layering transactions until the pattern started to show. Offshore transfers through the Caymans, consulting fees routed through legal accounts, real estate investments held under temporary corporations, and every time we found a new account, as it connected back to the same three people: Daniel, Alina, and his brother Trent. Trent had been the surprise. On the surface, he was a mess, always had been. Expensive hobbies, bad temper, worse judgment. The kind of guy who thought yelling louder made him right. But the numbers didn't lie. He wasn't just careless, he was desperate. Cameron pulled up the report one night and leaned back in his chair. Your brother-in-law's in deep, he said. How deep? Gambling markers, private loans, cash advances. He owes more than he makes in a year. I studied the screen. And Daniel's covering it? Looks like it, Cameron said. Money moves from Daniel's accounts through one of Alina's client trusts, then lands in companies Trent controls. I nodded slowly. So they're cleaning money and paying debts at the same time? Yeah, Cameron said. What, and doing it badly? That was the part that mattered. People who think they're smarter than everyone else always leave a trail. Not because they have to, but because they believe nobody is capable of following it. Daniel believed that. Alina definitely believed that. They thought attorney-client privilege made them untouchable. It doesn't. Not when the money is dirty, not when the pattern is obvious, and not when someone like me is watching. The first real break came from a place I didn't expect. His family. 4 days after he called my fake employer, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. Just one line. He's moving money through his mother's house. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Who is this? The reply came almost immediately. Naomi, Trent's wife. That made me sit up straighter. Naomi had always been quiet at family dinners, polite, observant, the only one who didn't laugh when Daniel made jokes about people he thought were beneath him. I called the number instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. You shouldn't have called, she said quietly. You texted me. I know. There was a pause. I could hear something in the background, a TV maybe. Voices. You can't stay on the phone long, she said. He's in the house. Then talk fast. Another pause. They're hiding documents here, she said. Courier deliveries, not office mail, physical packages. My heart slowed, the way it always did when something important clicked. You're sure? I saw them. Came in return addresses. Trent shredded one in the kitchen 2 days ago. That matched the routing codes we'd found. Exactly. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Her voice changed slightly. Not softer, harder. Because they think I'm stupid too. I didn't say anything. She kept going. Trent's been using my accounts to cover his debts. He thinks I don't check. Daniel's been in the study every night with Alina, locking the door. They think this family is untouchable. And you want out. Yes, not emotional, not dramatic, just honest. You get proof, she said. I walk away clean, and I don't tell anyone what you're doing. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. This was the moment cases turn, when someone inside decides they're done protecting the people who hurt them. You know what you're asking for, I said. Yes. And you know what happens if this goes federal? Another pause. I know. Her voice dropped even lower. They deserve it. I closed my eyes for a second. All right. Then we were doing this for real. I need details, I said. Where are the documents kept? In Patricia's office, she said. There's a safe behind the bookshelf. He thinks nobody knows about it. Biometric? Yes. Code 2? I think so. Good. That meant it logged access. That meant it left timestamps. That meant it was traceable. Don't touch anything, I said. I won't. And don't text me again unless you have something new. I understand, she hesitated. He's going to destroy himself, isn't he? I looked at the account map on my screen, at the wires, at the shell companies, at the signatures. Yes, I said. He already has. We hung up. I sat there for a long time without moving. Then I picked up the secure phone and called Cameron. We have a location, I said. Yes, he didn't ask what that meant. Send it, he said. I read him the address. There was a long silence on the line. That's his mother's house. I know. You're sure you want to go this far? Yes. You realize once we open this, we don't close it again. I know. Another pause, then he sighed. All right, he said. Then we do it right. The next week was all preparation, no confrontation, no threats, just paperwork, court filings, financial disclosures, requests for records, everything exactly by the book. Daniel's attorney sent 3 letters demanding I sign the settlement. I didn't respond. He filed a motion claiming I was hiding assets. I let him. He told the court I was unemployed. I didn't correct him. The more he talked, the deeper he dug. Every lie went into the record. Every statement became evidence. And every time he signed his name, he tied himself tighter to the accounts he thought nobody could see. The hearing got scheduled for the following month. Temporary orders, asset division, representation disclosure, standard procedure. He showed up with a senior partner from one of the most expensive firms in the city. Of course he did. They wanted to intimidate me, make it look like I couldn't even afford to be there. That morning, Cameron stood in my office holding the final report. "You ready?" he asked. "Yes. You don't have to do this alone. I know. You could walk in there with 3 attorneys and end this in 10 minutes. I shook my head. "No." He frowned. "Why not?" "Because this wasn't just about winning. This was about letting him understand exactly what he had done. I want him comfortable," I said. "Yes, I want him laughing." Cameron studied me for a second, then nodded slowly. "All right." He handed me the folder. Everything was inside: offshore transfers, trust accounts, property filings, courier logs, safe access records, even the wire that paid Trent's debt. Enough to destroy all 3 of them. I closed the folder and picked up my coat. "Save the copies," I said. "Already did. And don't send anything yet." He smirked. "You want the courtroom first?" "Yes." I walked toward the door, then stopped. "Cameron." "Yeah?" "If this goes wrong," he shook his head. "It won't." I nodded once and left. By the time I reached the courthouse, the parking lot was already full. Lawyers in suits, people holding folders, couples sitting in their cars not talking. I parked at the far end, turned off the engine. Again sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. 5 years of marriage, one hearing, one room, one moment where everything was about to turn. I picked up the folder from the passenger seat, stepped out of the car, and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the hallway outside the courtroom was crowded, and I saw him immediately. Daniel stood near the door with his attorney, laughing about something, completely relaxed. He looked happy, like this was already over. Alina was there too, standing beside them, holding a leather portfolio, talking like she belonged. When he noticed me, his smile got wider. He leaned toward his lawyer and said something. They both looked at me. Then the lawyer laughed. Daniel shook his head like he couldn't believe how easy this was going to be. I kept walking, didn't slow down, didn't look away. As and when I passed them, he said just loud enough for me to hear, "You couldn't even hire a lawyer." I stopped, turned, looked at him for a long second, then I said calmly, "I don't need one." He laughed again. His attorney laughed too. Even Alina smiled. They thought that was confidence. It wasn't. It was the last moment he was ever going to feel safe. Because 10 minutes later, we were inside the courtroom, and the judge was about to ask why I was representing myself. And that was the moment everything started to change. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not physically. The temperature was normal, the air steady, the lights too bright like every courthouse in the country, but the atmosphere had that sharp, quiet tension that makes every sound feel louder than it should. Papers sliding, chairs moving. It's someone coughing in the back row. Daniel sat at the table across from me with his attorney, completely relaxed, one arm resting on the chair like he was waiting for a meeting to start. Alina sat one seat behind him, legs crossed, flipping through a folder with the same confident expression she'd worn the night she stood in my living room, wearing my robe. None of them looked worried. That was exactly how I wanted it. I took my seat alone, no lawyer, no assistant, just a single folder in front of me and a pen I hadn't even uncapped yet. Daniel leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. Both of them smiled. I didn't look at them. I kept my eyes on the empty judge's chair. When the clerk called the room to order, everyone stood, and the judge walked in with the same calm, tired expression I'd seen 100 times in other cases. Yet he sat, adjusted his glasses, and started flipping through the file. "Case number 2147, the clerk read. "Mercer versus Mercer, temporary orders hearing." We sat. The judge looked down at the paperwork, then up at the tables. "Representation?" Daniel's attorney stood immediately. "Your Honor, Richard Hale for Mr. Mercer." He said it like he expected the name to matter. The judge nodded, wrote something down, then looked at me. And for Mrs. Mercer? I stood. I'm representing myself, Your Honor. There was a pause, a small one, but long enough for Daniel to let out a quiet laugh under his breath. Not loud, just enough for the people behind him to hear. His attorney smiled without looking at me. Alina didn't even bother hiding it. The judge glanced at me again, then at the file, then back at me. May you understand this is a financial dispute involving significant assets, he said. Yes, Your Honor. And you wish to proceed without counsel? Yes. Another pause. He studied my face for a second longer than most judges do. Then he nodded once. Very well. Daniel leaned back in his chair like the whole thing had already been decided. His attorney stood again. Your Honor, we're requesting immediate enforcement of the proposed settlement. My client has already disclosed all marital assets, and Mrs. Mercer has refused to sign without justification. He slid a document across the table. This agreement is fair, lawful, and reflects the fact that the majority of the wealth in this marriage was generated solely by my client. The judge looked down at the paper. Mrs. Mercer? I stayed standing. I object to the settlement. Oh, Your Honor. Daniel sighed loudly, like he'd been expecting that. His attorney didn't even look at me. On what grounds? The judge asked. I opened the folder slowly. On the grounds that the financial disclosures submitted by Mr. Mercer are incomplete. That got their attention. Daniel's attorney finally turned toward me. Incomplete? He said. Yes. He smiled, the kind of smile you use when you think someone just made a mistake. Mrs. Mercer, all required disclosures have been filed with the court. I nodded. They have. The judge looked between us. Then explain your objection. I placed the first document on the table. Mr. Mercer's filing states that he has no offshore accounts, no foreign holdings, and no undisclosed trusts. That is correct, his attorney said. I slid the paper forward. And then I would like to know why this routing record shows a transfer of $280,000 to a Cayman Islands account 3 months ago. The room went quiet, not dramatic, just still. Daniel didn't move. His attorney frowned, picked up the paper, and looked at it, then looked at me. Where did you get this? I obtained it legally, I said. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. The judge held out his hand. Let me see that. The attorney hesitated, then handed it over. The judge read the page, then flipped to the next one. I slid forward. And the next, and the next. Each one with the same pattern. Transfers, shell companies, trust accounts, signatures. Daniel's posture changed slightly. Not much, just enough that I saw it. That's that tiny shift people make when they realize something isn't going the way they thought it would. His attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, these documents haven't been authenticated. We have no way of knowing where they came from. I nodded. That's true. The judge looked at me. Do you have authentication, Mrs. Mercer? Yes, Your Honor. I opened the folder again and pulled out the certification. Court-appointed forensic audit, contract number 88-FR-19, Federal Review Authorization. The judge froze for a second when he saw the seal. Then he looked at me again, longer this time. You're the one who requested this audit? Yes, Daniel finally spoke. This is ridiculous, he said. She's bluffing. His attorney put a hand on his arm. Let me handle this. But the judge was still looking at me. Are you working forensic accounting? He asked. Yes, Your Honor. For who? I held his gaze. For the court, when requested. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything that had happened yet. The judge lowered the paper slowly and looked across the room at Daniel, then at his attorney, then back at me. You really didn't recognize her, he said quietly. Daniel blinked. What? The judge pushed the documents forward. These are federal audit certifications, he said. Do you understand what that means? Daniel's attorney's face had gone pale. He flipped through the pages faster now, eyes moving back and forth. This isn't possible, he muttered. I stayed where I was, hands on the table, voice calm. It's very possible. Daniel leaned forward. What is this? He snapped. His attorney didn't answer. He just kept reading. Page after page, account after account, transfer after transfer. Finally, he looked up at Daniel, and for the first time since I'd met him, he didn't look confident. He looked scared. You told me everything was declared, he whispered. Daniel's face drained of color. I did. The judge spoke again. Mrs. Mercer, are you alleging undisclosed assets? Yes, Your Honor. And possible financial misconduct? Yes. And you have documentation to support that claim? I slid the rest of the folder forward. Yes. The judge leaned back slowly. The entire room was silent now. No laughing, no whispering, no smug smiles, just the sound of paper turning. Daniel looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Not the woman he threw out, not the wife he thought he controlled, someone else, someone he didn't understand at all. How? He said under his breath. I met his eyes, and for the first time since the night he packed my life into garbage bags, I let him see exactly how calm I really was. You should have read the paperwork more carefully, I said quietly. His attorney stood up. Your Honor, we request a recess. The judge shook his head. No, he closed the file. We're not taking a recess. He looked directly at Daniel. Mr. Mercer, you're now under obligation to provide full disclosure of every account listed in this audit. Daniel swallowed. His mouth opened, then closed again. And if these documents are accurate, the judge continued, this court will be referring the matter for further review. Alina stood up suddenly. This is absurd, she said. You can't sit down, the judge said without even looking at her. She froze, slowly sat. Later, the judge turned back to me. Mrs. Mercer, do you have anything else to submit today? I looked down at the folder. There was more, a lot more. But I didn't need it yet. Not today, not in this room. Yes, I said. One more thing. I pulled out the last page, the one with Trent's name, the one with the debt, the one with the transfer that connected all three of them, and I placed it on the table. This payment, I said, was routed through a legal trust held by Ms. Alina Kessler. Alina's head snapped up. That's privileged. Not if it's fraud, I said. The judge took the paper, read it, then looked up slowly. The silence in that courtroom felt like pressure in your ears. Daniel stared at me. Alina stared at the judge. His attorney stared at the floor, and I sat there completely still, knowing the moment had finally come. The moment they realized they hadn't been playing a divorce game, they'd been walking into a forensic audit, and they had just lost control of everything. The silence in the courtroom didn't break all at once. It cracked, slowly, like glass under pressure. No one moved for several seconds after the judge read the last page. Even the clerk stopped typing. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of the lights overhead and the rustle of paper as the judge set the document down in front of him. Daniel looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Alina was staring at the table, her hands frozen on the edge of her folder, knuckles white. His attorney didn't sit down. He didn't say anything either. Yet he just stood there with the expression of a man, realizing the case he thought was simple had just turned into something that could ruin his career if he handled it wrong. The judge leaned back slowly in his chair and folded his hands. Mr. Mercer, he said, calm but very precise, you filed sworn financial disclosures with this court stating that you had no offshore holdings, no undisclosed trusts, and no foreign accounts. Daniel swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. The judge tapped the stack of documents with one finger. These records suggest otherwise. Daniel's attorney stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, we need time to review these materials. We were not aware. You should have been, the judge cut in. The attorney stopped talking. The judge looked back at Daniel. Do you wish to amend your disclosures? Daniel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His eyes flicked to Alina, then to his attorney, then to me, and that was the moment it hit him. Not the legal part, not the money, me. He was finally looking at me like he understood he had never actually known who he was married to. What is this? He whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The judge spoke again. This court is not going to proceed on incomplete or inaccurate financial statements. I am ordering a full review of the accounts listed in this audit. He picked up the certification page again. And given the source of this report, the matter may also be referred for external investigation. That was the line that broke the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just a shift. Daniel's attorney sat down very slowly, like his legs didn't trust the floor anymore. Alina leaned forward, whispering something urgently to him, but he didn't respond. He was still staring at me, like he was trying to replay every conversation we'd ever had and figure out where he went wrong. The judge turned toward me again. Mrs. Mercer, you understand the seriousness of what you've submitted? Yes, Your Honor. You're prepared to stand by these findings? Yes. He nodded once. Very well. He closed the file. This hearing is continued pending review. Temporary asset restrictions will be placed on all accounts listed in this report. Daniel jerked his head up. What? His attorney grabbed his arm. Don't! But it was too late. You can't freeze my accounts, Daniel said. That's my money. The judge's expression didn't change. It's marital money until proven otherwise. Daniel's face went pale. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, the judge said. He turned to the clerk. Enter the order. The sound of the keyboard started again, sharp and fast. Each keystroke felt like a nail going in. Daniel sat down hard in his chair. Alina leaned closer to him, whispering fast now, her voice tight, controlled, nothing like the confident tone she used the night she told me I couldn't afford a lawyer. His attorney rubbed his forehead with one hand and stared at the table. No one was laughing anymore, not even a little. The judge stood. Court is adjourned. Everyone rose automatically. Chairs scraped, paper shuffled. People in the gallery started whispering, the low buzz of curiosity spreading through the room. I closed my folder slowly and slid the papers back inside. No rush, no emotion, just a steady, controlled feeling of something finishing exactly the way it was supposed to. When I turned, Daniel was already looking at me. He took a step forward. His attorney grabbed his sleeve. Not here, he muttered. Daniel pulled free anyway. What did you do? He said. His voice was low, but it shook. I stopped a few feet from him. Up close, he didn't look powerful anymore. He looked tired, confused, smaller than I remembered. You should have read the disclosures before you signed them, I said. You lied to me. No, I said. I stayed quiet. Alina stepped in front of him. You had no right to dig into his accounts, she snapped. I looked at her, really looked. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect confidence, cracking at the edges. You should know better than anyone, I said calmly. If the money's clean, there's nothing to find. Her jaw tightened. You think this is over? She said. I shook my head slightly. No, it's just starting. Daniel stared at me like he wanted to say something else. Like he wanted to go back to before the trash bags, before the papers, before the night he decided I was expendable. But there was nothing left to say. He looked away first. I walked past them without another word and pushed through the courtroom doors into the hallway. The noise hit me all at once. Voices, footsteps, phones ringing, normal life going on like nothing had happened. I kept walking until I reached the exit, stepped outside, and felt the cold air hit my face. For a second, I just stood there on the courthouse steps, not smiling, not crying, just breathing. 5 years. 5 years of pretending not to notice the arrogance. 5 years of letting him believe I needed him. 5 years of being underestimated on purpose. And it was over. Not the case, not the investigation. That would go on for months. Accounts would get frozen, lawyers would fight. His firm would start asking questions. His brother's debts would come out. Alina's trust accounts would get audited. Piece by piece, the life he built on lies would collapse exactly the way he built it, slow, public, permanent. But for me, the war was already done. I walked down the steps, crossed the street, and headed toward the parking lot without looking back. My phone buzzed in my pocket before I even reached the car. Cameron, I answered. Well, he said. It's done, I told him. He let out a long breath. How bad? They froze everything. He laughed softly. Oh, he must have loved that. He stopped laughing. That's my favorite part, Cameron said. I leaned against the car for a second, looking up at the gray sky. You were right, he added. About what? Arrogance. I smiled a little. It always gets them. There was a pause on the line. You okay? He asked. I thought about the penthouse, the trash bags, the robe, the wine on my shirt, the courtroom, the look on Daniel's face when the judge said he didn't recognize me. And I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't angry anymore. Not even a little. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. You coming in? Later. I hung up, unlocked the car, and sat down behind the wheel. For a moment, I just rested my hands on the steering wheel and looked straight ahead. 5 years ago, I thought marriage meant safety. I thought loyalty meant something. I thought if you stayed calm, stayed kind, stayed supportive, people would treat you the same way. I was wrong. Some people only respect what they're afraid of losing. And sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who can take everything. I started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove away from the courthouse without looking back. Not because I was running, because I didn't live there anymore.